vote will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderman Wessels, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Florida, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Schmid, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvy, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed,
Here.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderwoman Howard, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderman French, Alderman Ogilvy, Alderwoman Cruzen, 20 present.
Quorum being present, we will be led today in prayer by Reverend John Watson of Maple Temple, who's son of John Watson Sr., Reverend John Watson Sr., and First Lady and Evangelist, Mrs. Watson.
Let us pray. Gracious God, Heavenly Father, we first thank you for this privilege to petition you through prayer. As we enter in this holiday season, we pause in your presence to once again reflect on the eternal gift you gave to all mankind, your Son, Jesus. As we end this year, we again acknowledge with gratitude the progress our great city has made. We pray for our city officials that you will refresh their mind, their body, and their spirit, so they may continue to dedicate themselves to their tasks and assignments at hand. Help us all amid the changes and distractions of this life to rest our spirits upon your eternal foundations of truth and love which you laid for us. With the assurance of your Holy Spirit, may we accept the responsibilities of this day and fulfill all our obligations with fidelity and honor. Into your loving arms we commit ourselves, our families, our communities, and our city. Keep us steady, make us confident, and give us the courage to face each day with a firm trust in you. Amen.
If you guys haven't heard any good gospel music, if you ever go to Reverend Watson's church, man, his mother, whew, she can sing. So thank you, Reverend Watson. We always enjoy you coming and giving us the open prayer. Introduction of honor guests. Any introduction of honor guests? Alderman from the 23rd.
Yes, Mr. President, board members. I'd like to have as my special guest Percy from Fire, Lieutenant Tom Persich from the police leadership, Dave Rudolph and Joe Steiger with the Police Association, and Celeste with the Realtors.
Alderman from the 12th, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to introduce as my special guest today Mr. Keith Taylor and Paul Higgins with the Carpenters District Council. I'd also like to introduce Ms. Gina Hackenworth, Community Affairs Person with Laclede Gas, and also David Holmes with the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters.
Alderman from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to announce as my special guest today, Mrs. Stephanie Robinson, the Army UE, and also the former Comptroller, Vervis Jones. Thank you.
Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to have for my honored guest today, Ronnie Auer, who's with us.
Oh, excellent. Alderwoman from the 14th.
I'd like to have as my special guest today Senator Harry Kennedy, committeeman from the 14th Ward also, and emissary from Sharon Carpenter's office.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I would like to have as my special guest today Gina Hackenworth with Laclede, David Holmes with Plumbers and Pipefitters, and Anthony Lancia with the AGC.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 22nd.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to have Mr. Demetrius Alfred with Local 73 as my special guest.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Approval of the minutes?
There are none.
All right. Alderman from the 10th. Skipped you. I don't know if you want to. I didn't see your guy here, but I saw you.
Once again, I request that Mr. Conway leave my microphone alone. He's doing this on purpose now. I see him come in here and do it every morning. Morning, Mr. President, members of the board. We are gathered here on Friday the 13th, so I would just like to take a moment to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting before we do something very bad for the city. No?
No.
Okay.
No. Motion out of time.
Thank you, sir.
All right. All right. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in sections A, B, and C of the agenda and have been placed in all aldermen's mailboxes. I have from His Honor the Mayor the following correspondence. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for reappointment to the Board of Adjustment. Reappointment of Sally Burke, who resides at 6828 Scanlon and whose term will expire on July the 10th, 2014. Reappointment of John Albert, who resides at 2744 Bird and whose term will expire on December 18th, 2014. The reappointment of John Caruso, who resides at 5535 Columbia and whose term will expire on December 18, 2014. Reappointment of Joseph Klitzing, who resides at 3716 Hartford and whose term will expire on August the 15th, 2017. The reappointment of George Hitt, who resides at 5164 Waterman and whose term will expire on August the 15th, 2017. I respectfully request your approval of these appointments and reappointments. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from 13, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Board of Adjustments.
Move for approval of the mayor's reappointments to the Board of Adjustment.
Moved by the Alderman from 13th, seconded by the Alderman from 9th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment to the Mental Health Fund Board of Trustees. The appointment of Terrell Carter, who resides at 6600 Hancock and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2016. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 20th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Mental Health Fund Board of Trustees.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for approval of the mayor's appointment.
Moved by the Alderman from the 20th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Central West End Southeast Special Business District. The appointment of Dennis Overton, who resides at 4466 West Pine, whose term will expire on December 31st, 2017. The reappointment of Terry Pasapane, who resides at 3954 West Pine, whose term will expire on December 31st, 2015. The reappointment of Jeffrey Minor, who resides at 4100 Laclede, whose term will expire on December 31st, 2016. The reappointment of Yusef Scrogan, who resides at 4243 Laclede, and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2015. The appointment of Tiffany Bird, who resides at 4157 West Pine, whose term will expire on December 31st, 2017. I respectfully request your approval of these appointments. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 17th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Central West End Southeast Special Business District.
Mr. President, I move that we accept these appointments.
It's moved by the Alderman from the 17th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by Alderman from the 22nd. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for reappointment to the Locust Central Business District. The reappointment of Omar Perkins, who resides at 1405 Pine, and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2017. The reappointment of Barry Adelstein, who resides at 2840 Locust, and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2016. The reappointment of Jennifer Prushner, who resides at 2323 Locust, and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2017. I respectfully request your approval of these appointments. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 19th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Locust Central Business District.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I move that we accept these recommendations from the mayor's office.
Moved by the Alderman from the 19th, seconded by the Alderman from the 12th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries.
That's the extent of report of city officials.
We'll dispense with line item 7. Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? We would dispense with line items 8 through 10. First reading of board bills.
Board Bill 268, sponsored by Alderman Conway, and ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Comptroller, and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, making certain findings with respect to the transfer of up to $13,727,769 of excess monies that the city, the owner and operator of Lambert Airport, intends to transfer from Debt Service Stabilization Fund to the Airport Revenue Fund, containing a severability clause and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 269, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, and ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from J Industrial District to G Local Commercial and office districts for property on Gratiot Street and South Vanderveer, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 270, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingracia, and ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from B2 Family Dwelling District and F Neighborhood Commercial District to the F Neighborhood Commercial District only for properties of 2841 through 51 Gravois, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 271, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, and ordinance authorizing and directing the street commissioner to take all necessary actions to honorarily designate Pine Street between 4th Street and Broadway, FH logo, then Bill Anderson Way. Board Bill 272, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, and ordinance authorizing and directing the Director of Public Safety on behalf of the mayor and the city to enter into and execute a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, to fund the 2013 Justice Assistance Grant Program upon approval of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, and to extend funds by entering into contracts or otherwise for grant purposes, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 273, sponsored by Alderwoman Flowers, and ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service, authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller of the city to execute upon receipt of and in consideration the sum of $1 and other good and valuable consideration of permanent irrevocable easement, which shall give, grant, extend, and confer to the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District the exclusive right to build and maintain a sewer or sewers, including stormwater improvements on the strip or strips of ground described and in City Block 9115, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 274, sponsored by Alderman Conway and President Reed, and ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service, authorizing and directing the President of the Board of Public Service to enter into a cooperative agreement by and between the Metropolitan Park and Recreation District, doing business as Great Rivers Greenway District, for a project called Bike St. Louis Phase 3, which involves upgrading and updating approximately 56 miles of existing bike St. Louis routes and implementation of approximately 52 miles of the new bike St. Louis routes. Board Bill 275, sponsored by Alderman Schmidt, and ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to submit all necessary applications and to enter into agreements with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services or any other agencies for the care and prevention in the United States demonstration project program, and authorizing the mayor, upon approval of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, to extend any funds received by said grants to fulfill the obligations of the grants and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 276, sponsored by Alderman Schmidt, and ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into agreements with the Transdisciplinary Center on Health Equity Policy, Research, and Practice under the Satcher Health Leadership Institute at Morehouse School of Medicine, funded by the National Institute of Health's National Institute on Minority Health and Health Disparities for the St. Louis Collaborative Action for Child Equity Project, and authorizing the mayor, upon approval of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, to expend any funds received by and said agreements to fulfill the obligations of the agreement. That's the extent of our first reading.
Alderman from 28th, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move to suspend the rules for the purpose of introducing Board Bill 277.
Is it on everyone's desk?
It is, sir.
All right, it's been moved by the Alderman from 28th, seconded by the Alderman from 22nd. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderman Wessels, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Florida, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Schmidt, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed,
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Ortman, Alderman French, Alderman Carter, 24 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion of the Alderman from the 28th and introduce Board Bill number 277. Madam Clerk, please assign Board Bill number 277 to Neighborhood Development.
So noted.
And while you're at it, move Board Bill 274 to Transportation and Commerce. 274 to Transportation and Commerce.
So noted.
Reference to committee.
To the Streets Committee, Board Bill 271. To the Public Safety Committee, Board Bill 272. To the Transportation and Commerce Committee, Board Bill 268 and 274. To the Housing Committee, Board Bill 269 and 270. To the Ways and Means Committee, Board Bill 273. And to the Health and Human Services Committee, Board Bill 275 and 276. And to the Neighborhood Development Committee, Board Bill 277. That's the extent of reference to committees.
Second reading.
Following board bills were reported out of the Ways and Means Committee. Board Bill 264, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, an ordinance approving an amendment to the boundaries of the Orpheum Theater Community Improvement District, removing the property at 421 North 8th Street and containing a severability clause. The following board bill was reported out of the Public Employees Committee. Board Bill 229, sponsored by Aldermen and Alderwomen, Alderman Boyd, Alderwoman Florida, Alderman Williamson, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Villa, Alderwoman Ingracia. An ordinance submitting to the qualified voters of the city a proposed amendment to the charter of the city, adding paragraph E to section 4 of Article 8 of the charter of the city relating to the granting of veterans preference to the applicants who successfully pass examinations for civil service positions, providing for an election to be held thereon and for the manner of voting thereat, and containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of our second reading.
We dispense with line item 14. Perfection consent. Alderman from the 17th, you have something on the perfection
Yes,
consent?
Mr. President, I'd like to move the Board Bill 226 and 235 to the informal calendar.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that change. Board Bills 226 and 235 to the informal calendar.
So noted. Wait a minute.
Perfection consent. (226) and 235 to the perfection and formal calendar.
So noted.
Board bills for perfection consent.
Board Bill 252, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 4367 Gibson redevelopment area containing a severability clause. Board Bill 236, committee substitute, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy and President Reed, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing and directing the St. Louis Municipal Finance Corporation to issue and sell the corporation's city parks leasehold improvement dedicated revenue bond series 2013 in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $26 million in order to fund all or a portion of the planting of trees and other landscape materials in the right-of-way certain city parks and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 232, sponsored by Alderman Ogilvy, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from A, single-family dwelling district and F, neighborhood commercial districts to the F, neighborhood commercial district in City Block 5100 for property at 7207 Piccadilly and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 233, sponsored by Alderman Schmidt, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from B, two-family dwelling district to the J, industrial district in City Block 1768 for property on Marine and Winnebago and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 234, sponsored by Alderman Schmidt, an ordinance pertaining to special use district establishing the Marine, Winnebago, Kosciuszko warehouse area special use district, providing definitions and findings pertaining to said districts, and further providing use regulations for said districts. Board Bill 231, sponsored by Alderman Schmidt, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 111 Winnebago. Board Bill 253, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 301 North Memorial Drive redevelopment area containing a severability clause. Board Bill 254, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 2249 Indiana and 2245 Shenandoah redevelopment area and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 255, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, an ordinance moving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 2417 South 9th Street redevelopment area and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 258, sponsored by Alderman Conway, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 4206 Shaw redevelopment area containing a severability clause. Board Bill 259, sponsored by Alderman Conway, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 2622 through 26 Kings Highway Boulevard redevelopment area containing a severability clause. Board Bill 260, sponsored by Alderman Conway, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 2051 through 55 Maury and 4561 through 65 Flat redevelopment area containing a severability clause. Board Bill 262, sponsored by Alderman Ortman, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 3306 Illinois redevelopment area and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 263, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingracia, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 2137 Nebraska redevelopment area and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 265, sponsored by Alderman Moore, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 4272 West St. Ferdinand Avenue, redevelopment area containing a severability clause. That's the extent of perfection consent.
Alderman from the 13th, you recognized on the motion for the perfection consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for perfection of the aforementioned bills on the consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, entertain the second by the Alderman from the 23rd. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to move for suspension of the rules for the purpose of moving the following board bills to the third reading consent calendar. Board Bill 252, 232, 233, 234, 231, 253, 254, 255, 258, 259, 260, 262, 263, and 265.
Alderman from the 22nd, been moved by the Alderman from the 22nd, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway. Alderman Ortman. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Villa. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Wessels. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmidt. Alderman French. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvy. Alderman Cone. Alderman Williamson. Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Conway. Alderman French. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Carter. 24 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion of the Alderman from the 22nd. Madam Clerk, please place the aforementioned bills at the tail end of third reading consent calendar.
So noted.
We'll dispense with line item 16, third reading consent.
Board Bill 277, floor substitute. I'm sorry. 227, floor substitute. 228, 202, 221, 225, 242, 243, 244, 245, 246, 247, 248, 203, 230, 237, 238, 252, 232, 233, 234, 231, 253, 254, 255, 258, 259, 260, 262, 263, and 265.
Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on the motion for the third reading consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for third reading and final passage of the aforementioned bills on the consent calendar and request previous roll.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. It's been a request for previous roll. Hearing no objection, motion carries.
That's the extent of third reading consent.
Third reading, report of engrossments.
Board Bill 239, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, an ordinance designating a portion of the city as a redevelopment area known as 706 Market Redevelopment Area, establishing the 706 Market Special Allocation Fund containing a severability clause.
Alderwoman from the 7th, you recognize on the motion on the third reading and final passage of Board Bill number 239.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for final passage of Board Bill 239.
Moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Alderwoman, please proceed.
I renew my motion.
Has been any discussion? Alderman from the 1st.
I think Alderman Vaccaro and I are going to have to sit by each other so we don't have to do this all the time. Mr. President, members of the board, I rise to oppose not only this one but the following board bills for the aforementioned times that I've said it last week in committee and so forth, and that I really do believe that this is a TIF for Laclede Gas. I think that we unwisely use TIFs. I hope we have a discussion at some point about how to change TIFs to make them more friendly to our school system. Last week I talked about, and I didn't name the person, about having a conversation with the comptroller's office, who I won't say the person still, about the difference in our TIFs in Missouri and the ones in Illinois. I became familiar with the TIFs in Illinois, I guess about 15 years ago or so, when I was doing a difficult development in which TIF was tried to force down my throat, and that didn't happen. And so I started in researching what they did in other states. I know they do TIFs for a lot of things over in East St. Louis. They've done Walgreens and everything else, but it's a very different animal that they use, and it's much more friendly to their school system. And so, not to be repetitive over and over and over again, I remove my objections to this TIF, and I'd request a roll call.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 7th, you recognize to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. I renew my motion.
It's been moved and seconded that we third read and final pass Board Bill number 239. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. No. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderwoman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Conway. Alderman Ortman.
Aye.
Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Villa. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Wessels. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmid. Alderman French. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvy. Alderman Cone. Alderman Williamson. Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed.
Aye.
Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman French. Alderman Carter. 23 aye votes, 2 no votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion that Alderman from the 7th and third read and finally passed Board Bill number 239.
Board Bill 240, Committee Substitute, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, and known as affirming adoption of a redevelopment plan, redevelopment area redevelopment project, authorizing the execution of a redevelopment agreement between the city and Market TIF containing a severability clause.
Alderman from the 7th, you recognize on the third reading and final passage of Board Bill number 240, Committee Substitute.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I would move for final passage of Board Bill 240, Committee Substitute.
Moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 5th. Any discussion? Alderman from the 7th, you recognize the close.
I renew my motion.
It's been moved and seconded that we third reading final pass Board Bill number 240, Committee Substitute. There's been a request for previous roll. Hearing no objection, motion carries.
Board Bill 241, Committee Substitute, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the issuance and delivery of not to exceed $7 million plus issuance cost principal amount of tax increment revenue notes for 706 Market Redevelopment Project, prescribing the form and details of said notes, of such notes, and the covenants and agreements made by the city to facilitate and protect the payment thereof, prescribing other matters relating thereto, and containing a severability clause.
Alderman from the 7th, you recognize on third reading and final passage of Board Bill number 241, committee substitute.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for final passage of Board Bill 241, committee substitute.
Moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Any discussion?
Previous roll.
There's been a request for previous roll. Hearing no objection, motion carries.
That's the extent of third reading report of engrossment.
Board of Enrollment Committee.
Board Bill 227, floor substitute, 228, 202, 221, 225, 242, 243, 244, 245, 246, 247, 248, 203, 230, 237, 238, 239, 240, committee substitute, 241, committee substitute, 252, 232, 233, 234, 231, 253, 254, 255, 258, 259, 260, 262, 263, and 265.
All other business being suspended, the President shall in open session affix his signature hereto, to the end that these may become law.
can't believe you.
Move for adoption of a courtesy resolution. Council, entertain a second on it. Second on by the Alderman from the 20th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. First reading resolutions.
Resolution 186, sponsored by President Reed, Alderman Carter, and Alderman Schmidt. The Board of Aldermen declare the month of January 2014 as Book Blitz Month, and January the 27th, 2014 as Celebrate Education Day.
Alderman from the 20th, you recognize on first reading resolution number 186.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for unanimous consent.
Hearing no objection, please proceed, Alderman.
Mr. President, I know that you are active with regard to this. The St. Louis Business Resource Center is challenging us to work more diligently with regard to literacy. We all know that books open up the whole world to folks, and man does not live by Kindle alone. There are disparities in vocabulary based on income and educational backgrounds of parents, and in January there's an opportunity for all of us to be donating age-appropriate books, as well as celebrating National Book Blitz Month to promote reading, and on January 27th there will be a special event. I move for adoption of Resolution 186.
Moved by the Alderman from the 20th, seconded by the Alderman from the 7th. Alderman, any discussion?
I would like to add that I think that we should do this in bank because education is an extremely important thing in our city these days, and reading is critical for success in life. So I would ask that it be in bank.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 20th, that we pass Resolution 186 in bank. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, please make note of that change.
So noted. That's the extent of first reading of resolution.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 20th that we adopt Resolution number 186 in bank, also in bank, and it's been seconded by the Alderman from the 7th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of first reading of resolution.
Dispense with line item 22, miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
There are no meetings next week. That's the extent of my announcements.
Also, the Board of Aldermen, we have a food drive this year, so we're asking everybody if you can get it out to your constituents, get it out to people throughout City Hall, people that may be coming to City Hall for any reason, to drop off their foods. We'll have barrels out so that they can drop it off. And let's raise some food this year. I mean, we know that there are a lot of families suffering, and this will provide a meal for a lot of families throughout our city who otherwise may not have one. So we're also going to challenge ourselves. So let's all bring in some canned goods and then challenge all of our constituents also. And I thank each and every one of you for participating and working to make this food drive successful. I think it's a very important initiative, and I thank the entire Board of Aldermen for doing it. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. First, I'd like to congratulate the Urban League last night for kicking off their Whitney Young Foundation Scholarship Fund for our young people in this ward. It's one of those things that you can never do enough to make sure that we're promoting education and helping those who need help. So this is a new initiative for them. Their charter members showed up. They signed up. We even had actress Anna Marie Horsford, who came in town to support it. She signed up, and many others from out of the state of Missouri, so that's very good. So I congratulate the president, Michael McMillan, for his initiative. Also, there's still tickets available for In Unison Choir at the Symphony tonight. This is the first year they've had 2 nights in a row, and they're doing very well, so I hope you have an opportunity to attend. I'd also like to say a thank you to the state funeral directors who had their holiday party here in the 19th Ward last night. They have already agreed to have it here again next year. Think about that. They're coming from all over the state here to have their holiday celebration, staying in hotel rooms, spending time in the city. They've also worked on a national level, and they're bringing their national convention here to St. Louis in 2015. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from 13th, you recognize on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to excuse the alderman from the 4th, 6th, and 21st wards due to necessary absence.
Moved by the Alderman from 13th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from 11th. Any discussion? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Alderman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I just wanted to remind people that Candy Cane Lane, which is in the 6500 block of Murdoch in St. Louis Hills, actually, I don't know how, added more lights this year. But every weekend, they collect money for charities. And so Monday night, I will be out there ringing bells to raise money. So I just want to let everyone know that they do that for charities. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you haven't gotten out to Candy Cane Lane, that is beautiful. So I invite everybody needs to get out and see it. It's a beautiful display put together by the neighborhood. Alderman from 13th, you recognize on the motion to adjourn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Before we adjourn, I would like to let the board know that the alderman from the 11 states that we don't charge nothing for the Holly Hills Christmas display. So with that, I would move for adjournment until Friday, 10 a.m., January 10th.
Moved by the Alderman from 13th, seconded by the Alderman from 25th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Stand adjourned.